Hello and welcome to another episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, brought to you by Big Andy Media, the official sponsor of every Andy's Chomping at the Bit Friday episode. So today's episode is going to be on listening. I figured this would be a good one to follow up since we did communication just last week. So one of the big things on listening right off the bat I want to hit on is the distinguishing the difference between listening and hearing. And it's very easily confused, myself included, has confused it many times, especially early on in my life. So I'm going to give a very, very, what I feel, a basic, simple explanation for the difference. So when I study, or when I was in college and studying, well, I still study, but I usually have music on in the background, usually classic music, because I don't have to worry about lyrics as a distraction. So I'm technically not listening to music when I'm studying. I'm hearing music, but my attention is elsewhere. My attention is on whatever I'm studying. It's just more of a noise that's going in my ears and everything. But so I recognize it, but I'm not paying enough attention for it to actually be listening. So if that helps as a nutshell, the difference. So I'm going to be focusing on listening, because oftentimes we do hear what someone else is saying, but we don't listen. Like I said, myself included. I'm not above anyone on this one. But there are things that I can talk about as far as my experience with listening, as far as where I've developed, where I've been good at kind of naturally, and then where I've struggled a lot and where I'm still struggling. There is a lot of area where I have, room for improvement. So let's start with what I have improved on. Well, I've naturally been pretty decent at the initial listening when someone's talking, focusing on what they're saying, absorbing the information. That part I'm good at, but I wasn't always good at the rest of it. So beyond that, I struggle with this part right now to this day. I often want to almost jump in, I guess, and share with the share, if that makes sense. So when if I have a friend that talks to me, and they bring up a topic where they're struggling with an event in their life where they've struggled, one of the things I struggle with is simply listening and not having to respond. So this would be active listening that I'm really focusing on, and not necessarily following up with a a story to relate. I often do it because I want to be as helpful as possible, and sometimes often in the moment, I try to comfort with a story of my own. But I actually started noticing this about 2 weeks ago, that when I do that, it takes away from the other person, and that's not the intent or the purpose behind it. It's not the way it should be. I don't have to give someone a full story to relate, unless they want to hear it, of course. But sometimes, as far as, listening, simply asking questions, follow-up questions to what they said, comforting words, empathy, not the oh, that's too bad, I'm sorry. More of the, wow, that's, I'm not quite sure how you did that. That was tough. I don't know where I would be in that situation. Or I've been in situations like that. I know it's not easy. More relating to it. But my problem is, I tend to go, oh yeah, I know what that's like. It's unfortunate. This happened to me, and then I just go off on a tangent, which isn't intentional. It's like I said, it's something I fairly recently observed while talking to a friend, and I didn't say anything in the moment. But I held on to it, and that's good that I held on to it, because now that I'm aware of it, and I've seen it happen a couple of times with myself, and it just naturally happens. And the reason I bring this up in this way is because I really want to stress that it's not a simple switch. It's not um, once you know how you're supposed to actively listen, it doesn't just naturally apply. At least not in my experience. I can't necessarily say that for everyone. Um, but as I have tried to improve in this area, I've noticed that it takes time, and I have to be aware of it. So I remember when I was in treatment for my addiction, and even after I had turned myself in and faced the faced the time for the crime, I guess, for my poor choices. I did another cognitive behavioral treatment course, I guess you could say, and that gave me the opportunity to really focus in two different scenarios, two different environments on listening and active listening. The difference was when I was in treatment, I was in a controlled environment that was, I'd say, very healthy, very comforting overall. Jail was also technically a controlled environment, but the polar opposite. It was no longer comforting. It was very toxic. So it gave me a chance to take the same principles and reapply it in a much harder situation. One of those things that you learn, though, in cognitive behavioral treatment or therapy, however you want to call it, is learning how to listen better, learning the skills of active listening. So that was one of the things that I had to focus on. It's one of the things I have been able to grow on, fortunately, too. Because it was oftentimes someone would say something, and I'd be, yeah, didn't want to really listen. And it started creating patterns in the way people interacted with me. No one wants to talk to you if you don't listen, which, don't go the wrong way with that if you don't want to talk to people, because this will hurt you with people that you do want to talk to if you completely choose not to listen. But when people don't feel like you're paying attention, when people don't think that you're grasping, if someone's telling you something and you're actively looking for a way to counter what they're saying or to argue against what they're saying, or finding a way to spin what they're saying so you can talk about yourself. And like I said, that's the part where I struggle, is spinning it. I don't intentionally do it. And I notice often when I go to any kind of support meeting, I tend to find myself, while listening to other people, I start thinking sometimes, okay, when it gets to me, what am I going to say as far as this topic, as regarded to my life, instead of really just listening to each individual person as they go and they say what's going on in their life or whatever that is on the topic. And then when it gets to me, I can pause 5-10 seconds and then start speaking. There's no reason I have to go off to the races right off the bat. And that goes even with like I said, friends and family, the one-on-one conversations. And a lot of it is also because, sometimes, and I ask people for this a lot, when I vent, I tell people in advance, if I call someone up or I go to a friend, I tell them, hey, I'm going to be venting real quick. It's nothing against you. I'm not angry at you. I just need to get this off my chest. And then I say what I have to say. And by doing that, giving that warning, they know not to get defensive, and they know that I'm not looking for feedback necessarily. Sometimes you just need to say what's on your mind. And so that's where the active listening part's nice, because now I have, like I said, I'm still working on it. So this is where I'm improving. I'm consciously working on this part. But when someone comes to me and they're struggling and they just need to say something, I am needing to work on, and it's a good skill to develop here. Simply listening, not worrying about giving advice or necessarily feedback unless it's asked for it. Sometimes you just simply have to be there and listen to what they have to say, and no comments necessary afterwards. Just listen. And I struggle with that because I think the silence, it gets uncomfortable for me not always. I love silence too. But it gets uncomfortable to me because I feel like the silence is making the other individuals uncomfortable. And so that might be something that I need to work on also within overthinking, common problem. But I always try breaking the silence because of the uncomfortable, and I don't want the person to feel like I'm judging. I don't want the person to feel like I'm upset that they talked to me. 99 times out of 100, I'm glad they came to talk to me, because it gives you a sense of value when someone shares with you, even if it's something hard to hear. It's the thought that they came to you to talk is pretty special. So knowing not to speak sometimes, but I get that worry, because I don't want them to feel like that that I didn't want to hear from them, and so that the fear of that, and the fear that they might feel like I'm judging them by not saying anything, when in all actuality I don't I don't feel like I judge people in that scenario. If someone comes to me, no matter how horrific it is, even if it's something I've never dealt with, which is quite a few things, whether I have or haven't dealt with it, if someone comes to me and takes the time to share something with me, I respect it, and I don't judge on that. But with the uncomfortable part in me, not wanting them to feel that, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. I'm not a professional. I probably should talk to my therapist about this one. But I often instinctively try giving an example to comfort, I guess. Giving an example of something that was hard for me to experience, something that I struggled with, that I might have been judged for, or afraid of being judged for. It's kind of like, okay, you just shared you shared something with me that was, hard to do, or, showed vulnerability. And so, like, I instinctively want to share something else with them, I guess, to counter the thought of judgment. But like I said, a lot of that's in my head. A lot of that's just overthinking, overanalyzing. And I am really good at analyzing stuff, but when it comes to certain aspects of life, that very precious tool becomes somewhat of a self-destructive weapon, or destructive weapon in general, even towards the others. So that's a whole other topic in itself. Maybe I'll do that next week. Overthinking. I could go for hours on that, so I probably won't. But it's one of those things that being able to pull things back and just absorb the information they tell you. If there is something that you have a question on, following up. And as far as my experience, my understanding, that is, in a very, very simplified nutshell, the basis, the background of listening. Just giving your full, undivided attention to whoever is speaking, and not looking for a way to argue, not looking for a way to tell your own story, or or make a remark, simply listening to everything they say and processing it. So it's something I need to work on personally. I'm good at it in a lot of ways, but there's a lot of room for improvement. And if there's one thing I want to make clear on every episode of Andy's Chomping at the Bit, or everything, anywhere in general, I always have room to improve across every topic I'll ever cover. And I'm never going to be finished improving. I'm never going to reach that top point. And that's okay. I don't want to ever feel like I've reached that top point, because the second I feel that way, I've let myself down. I can't stop. There's always areas to improve. So across the board. And that's what makes life fun. Not looking for that destination, simply enjoying that journey. So the continuous work is what makes you better. So that summarizes listening. So I am very glad that I was able to speak with everyone about this. And I don't know yet what next week is going to be, but I do want to take the time real quick to talk about an upcoming series. September, when it's hopefully going to start. I'm really, really working to get a certain nonprofit to jump on board with it. So Singing for a Cause is what the upcoming events are going to be. It's essentially, if you go to bigandymedia.com, who's, Big Andy Media is the sponsor of Andy's Chomping at the Bit. If you go to, bigandymedia.com, and you go to the Singing for a Cause page, that is where you're going to find more information on this event. There's my original album that I had created. It's on the Singing for a Cause part, and it's available for purchase. Pay what you want, whether it be for one song or you want to buy the whole album. So pay what you want, because 100% of money raised from the sales of that original album will be going to that month's charity, Spotlight charity. And every month it'll be a new charity, which I felt was pretty beneficial, because if someone's not on board with one charity, they just have to wait a month and there's going to be another charity. And there's so many good charities out there, there's no reason to stop and settle for one. And there's a lot of good ones where most of the money you donate goes to them. And if someone doesn't want to buy the album, they just want to donate directly to the charity, that will be an option as well, because I'm going to make sure that there's a link going right to the charity's website, and you'll be able to get more information directly from them, or make a donation directly to them if that's the route you want to go. There will also be 2 performances. The first and third Sunday is what I'm planning right now. It will be hopefully 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Time performance, and it will be a request-based performance. So you'll make a request for a song, and I'll have a list of songs that I can play, so you don't request something I can't do. But you'll make a request. I'll play and sing that song. But to make a request, it will be based on a tip donation kind of deal. And so you make a tip donation, and then you'll be able to make the request. And for that, the income generated from that, half of the money will go to that month's Spotlight charity. The other half will go towards Big Andy Media, so I can continue spending the time and growing into what I want it to be, which eventually will have not just podcasts, not just music, but also short comedy clips, which are actually in the process of being made right now, as well as animation. Long term, I have the ambition of having a kids animated show, as well as eventually a comedy show for more older audiences. So that's the nutshell of Big Andy Media and Singing for a Cause. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware of that. But that's Andy's Chomping at the Bit for today. I hope you have a great rest of your Friday and an amazing weekend. I will see you guys again on Monday for another daily biscuit. Take care.